Abigail,
Ooh,
we
we're
haven't.
back.
We're back. You like this phantom? Everyone's like, "Is she coming back?"
Yeah.
And
Actually,
then
I've
we'll
just
leave.
realised I haven't got earphones. Is that a problem?
It might be echoey. Is it echoey for
Oh,
you?
no. And
Hmm.
Jenny didn't have them either.
Yeah, but you can go for it.
Okay, should we give it a go?
Yeah, it
Okay.
sounds okay. It's not doesn't sound echoey.
Yeah, okay.
So
So what's
yeah,
up? You just did some pretty intense podcasts.
yeah. Man, I'm just waking up. It's early here. Yeah, I did some intense ones, long ones, and kind of takes it out of you. I realize these podcasters are tough out doing two or three a day sometimes. But yeah, it's been good. Missed having our kind of whimsical, who knows where it's going to go conversations.
Off the fly.
Yeah, yeah. It's been interesting. It just trying to figure out where this thing's going. Um,
Mm.
And then you can also build up in your mind, like I had this conversation with Todd Atkinson, which was, most people in the world like, who's that guy? I don't care about him. But for it was an important podcast because it was his first time coming out about what had happened to him. So I felt the weight of that, and there was things I had to delete out of the episode because could be used against him, and the write up and everything I had to make sure wasn't gonna um, gaslight his already pretty rough situation.
Mm.
So it was kind of draining, and then he asked me to. He listened to it through. His wife did, and his wife's like, "Oh, you need to take this part out because this could be a problem." So I had to like
Mm.
dump it off of all the platforms and then load it back in. So then I got people saying, "Oh, it's not working," and then also like realizing I think in your head you kind of think, well, maybe this is going to stir things up and create some kind of small virally kind of
Mm. A ripple effect.
reaction. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you realize that, like I listen to podcasts that really impact me, but I never comment ever
No.
on the podcasts platform. And
Mm.
you realize, most people don't. Most
Mm.
people aren't going to say, "Hey, listen to the episode and it was really good." Like some people have, but
You know
you know,
what's going to happen? After we get to like 100 podcasts, we'll look back and the most downloaded would be us taking the piss out of Coldplay or something really, really just not
yeah,
very significant.
I know. Hey,
Do you know
I
what I
mean,
mean? Just you put it out into the universe and it just you don't know where it's going to land.
yeah, I mean, I think it's like when you listen to musicians and they say, "Oh, the B side, that song, we didn't think that one was going to go big. We thought it was going to be this one."
Yeah.
I still like when you launch a podcast, you have to put like your title, like, is it comedy? Is it history? Is it educational? I just slapped in comedy and I haven't really changed it.
Oh,
But it's hard because they don't really. I don't think just conversation is one. It has to be like it's quite rudimentary. It's not. It doesn't give lots of options.
right.
So I could probably go change that because it's definitely not comedy. I mean, sometimes it is, but it was really hard for it. I was looking through their
Yeah.
list of ones to pick. I was like, I don't know what we are.
I have no idea.
So
I don't know what we are, and it's very off the cuff. And obviously, the one with Todd was a much more sensitive situation, which needed a lot
mhm.
of care. And whereas we just press publish, and it's
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, it's so different, isn't it? And the funny thing is, someone said to me the other day how they're hesitant to do a podcast because they feel vulnerable putting themselves out there. And I realized I don't feel that way at all. I don't
mm,
worry afterwards. I suppose there's certain things that I've decided I won't go there, but for the most part, we talk pretty freely about things. And I don't go away feeling, oh God, no, what are people going to think about me? And that paranoia isn't there for me, but I can understand why someone who's never done it, and it's not like we're pros, but I don't feel that for some reason.
Well, what we did when we before we started it, remember? Because we would talk about it, and then this like instant, almost shame or embarrassment would come. Like, who do you think? Like, I think that's why we never did it earlier. Because you're
But
like,
it wasn't to do with our subject. I think it was more to do with, yeah, what I'm saying is when we talk about stuff, I don't analyze it afterwards and feel, gosh, I feel really exposed.
right,
People are going to know all this vulnerable stuff about me. Maybe it's because for so many years we've been talking back and forth and we've worked that all out.
Hmm.
Whereas for some people, and we're self-employed, we're not no one can cancel us.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to come after us, really? We can pretty much say what we want, and there's going to be very little repercussions as
Yeah.
self-employed people.
Yeah, unless you live in the UK, right? I mean, what did I read the other? I'm so out of touch with world news. Like, but I read the other day that in the UK they've arrested, I think it was the UK, over
Oh, it's
1,500 people.
hundreds, hundreds, yeah.
It was in the
For speak,
thousands.
yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
for posting stuff on like online that
Yeah,
could be used as I don't know, racist or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah, racial slurs.
So that would be pretty freaking scary if you're
Yeah,
if that's how you make your living, and then you just wonder if you're going to get a knock on it. Like there's literally people. Well, they probably can build AI,
yeah,
AI to troll through the internet. That's probably what they've done. They've created a bot that just scrapes the
yeah.
internet for anything that falls outside their guidelines.
Well, now what they do in the UK is if you're looking for employment, they will comb through all of your social media posts to make sure that you're politically correct and you haven't done
Right.
anything that would be questionable.
Which is for Todd, because his daughter, he said this on. Have you heard the podcast with Todd?
Not yet, no.
Time. Yeah, I mean, his daughter works for the government in human resources, and he said this in the interview. He's like, my daughter came to me and she said, "Papa, you're not going to work anymore. You won't be able to get a job because the first thing we do in the government and when we're hiring or anyone is Google, and everything that's on you is terrible. So you got to
Wow,
find a different way to make a living."
gosh,
Which is,
that's pretty sobering.
yeah, I mean, he's been Me Too'd
Mm,
in his vocation, which is anything religious. Like he used to be a dean of a university, which is a president of a Christian
mm,
university. I mean, he was high up in the Anglican Church, so he made his living since he was a teenager in some form of religious kind of work,
yeah.
and now he's been stripped of that, which is how Me Too people who make a living doing whatever they're doing at that point, when they get stripped, it's like you got to figure out another way to survive or move cities, or like they might have to move out of their city just to restart. And he's almost 60,
Wow.
so
It's a bit of
it's
a Jordan
serious, right?
Peterson story. It's very similar to Jordan Peterson by all accounts.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
just
when I'm
ousted by his own, because for
on people.
Jordan, it's like the universities are coming after him.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Jordan, obviously it hurt him and vexed him, but he'd already built this side hustle that was way overshadowing
Yeah.
his professional practice. So I think for Todd, it's not that way.
Well, it's the
Um,
same as the J.K. Rowling situation where she made statements that were considered to be, you know, hate towards the transgender community. And
mm,
she's not, I mean, obviously it's been miserable for her because she gets masses of hate mail and they've, you know, basically removed her
Park
from,
outside her house and
yeah,
picket.
horrible. The people who've suffered the worst are authors who stood with her, who aren't wealthy, who've been basically they've been cancelled and they're lower down.
Mm,
You know, they're not wealthy like she is, but they stood by her and they've suffered way more than she has financially from
right.
just affiliating themselves with her.
Yeah, and I think that we think that there will be redemption, that there will be a reckoning, and these people will. But actually, in actual fact, because we're so used to a fast news cycle, like first it was Ukraine, and then very quickly it was something else and something else. And I think that J.K. Rowling's gets maligned and smeared, and then a new news story comes up, but the forgiveness part never airs, right? So we think, oh yeah, but like what was that, 10 years ago or whatever, 5 years
Mm,
ago, she's probably fine now. But in actual fact, the general public never said, hey, we overstepped here and we're sorry about that. That part doesn't seem
yeah,
to ever happen. The
yeah,
same with COVID, right? Like we've never gotten a public apology for lockdowns or,
mm,
the reliability of the vaccine. We've never got that part. And
no,
so I think we think, oh, she's probably doing fine now. And she probably is, but there's still a massive wound there probably for people that have been Me Too'd.
And I think because of our upbringing, I certainly believed that everyone gets their just desserts in the end and the
Yeah,
truth will out. And there was this, I would almost describe it as, what would you call it? It's almost like in religion, what, I can't remember what the word is.
vindication.
Superstition.
Oh,
There's a
superstition.
superstition where it feels like, well, if that happens, then there's this law that's going to
Right.
kick in that will mean that the truth will out, and then I suppose
Yeah.
it's karma for some, and I don't see that happening. I don't
No,
see that
no,
always taking place at all. If you think of Jimmy
no.
Savile, he died knighted. None of those victims were brought to light until after his death,
Right.
and he was the most prolific paedophile in UK history, and the Queen knighted him, and he was like an adored national treasure. And
Yeah.
there was nothing until after he'd been dead a while, several years,
Right.
and then the story started coming out, and you think, no justice there for his victims at all, other than they removed his gravestone, and I guess they took away his knighthood after
Did they
death.
really? They took his gravestone away.
Well, the family did, because of all the vandals that, once it came out, they knew that
Oh
his
man.
gravestone was going to get absolutely vandalized, so they removed it. But that's it. That's it. And I think, okay, that law that we grew up believing, and some people would call karma, I don't think it always applies. It just
No, I
doesn't.
mean,
You can't rely on it.
I mean, Gabe and I were watching that famous sniper movie, Enemy at the Gates,
Yeah, yeah.
with Jude Law last night, and he's never really seen a war movie that graphic before, and just the amount of carnage. And they're on the boat going to Stalingrad, and 90% of them get shot by an airplane that comes down. They don't get on the beach, and you realize the penny kind of drops. Like, some of these people, they don't even know what they're fighting for, and then they don't even get a funeral. They just rot
Mm.
out there, and then years later they win the fight, and these people
Yeah,
celebrating.
yeah.
And you think that person died out there with no one and believing that maybe they lost, or what was this all for, and
Mm.
just die by yourself in pain. Yeah, the laws of justice don't always apply. Like, you've got child and what happened? There's some teenager up the road actually cliff jumped 5 days ago and just never came up. Oh.
Okay. Wow.
So do you think his parents feel like there's any justice in that? Like, it doesn't equal, right? You know,
Wow.
sometimes those things happen, and it's just like
Well, the opening
blows.
scene of Saving Private Ryan, where they're on the boat and you've got the anticipation, and then they
Yeah,
put down the drawbridge kind of boat thing, and then literally hundreds of them get shot instantly. And that was their first day at war. It's like,
yeah.
it lasted all of 10 minutes. And then,
Well, I didn't with the Russian one. The Russians were so poor. They just had numbers, right? So they would send these kids off out into Stalingrad. They unloaded them out the boats. They gave every other person got a gun, and then the other
wow,
person got 5 pieces of ammunition, like 5 bullets. And they would say, when one person falls over with a gun, you grab his gun then. So they would running into gunfire. Most of them had no gun in their hand. They just have to wait for someone
wow.
to drop and then grab his gun. And then when they drop, someone else will grab your gun. I mean,
That's the meat grinder. They call that the meat grinder of war, don't they?
yeah,
Where it's
yeah,
human, you're basically a human
fodder.
shield.
Yeah,
Fodder, yeah.
just
Yeah,
numbers. Like, we've
brutal.
got more numbers than you, and eventually you'll run out of bullets, and then we'll
Yeah.
get a couple guys over the
Unreal. And how
trench.
many did Russia lose? Well over 1 million people died
Yeah,
in Russia. And me and
defending
Wilfie,
themselves from Germany.
yeah. And now they're the enemy again. It's
Yeah,
just incredible how what rough ride Russia's had. But me and Wilfie, he's 12. We watched a war movie last night, and we were talking about our top favourite war movies because we've watched them all. We love war movies, and Dunkirk is right up there at the top. Dunkirk is
really.
absolutely, I think, yeah, it's an
But it's very
incredible.
slow. Even your son likes done because it's pretty
Oh my,
slow moving, right?
yeah. But his absolute favourite is All Quiet on the Western Front, which is so
Hmm.
sad. It came out relatively. It's the German side it's from a young German teenager's perspective in
Mm,
the war.
mm.
So sad, so brutal, but for Wilfie, that's top for him. All Quiet on the Western
Really,
Front.
he
Yeah,
likes
and
that dark.
Dunkirk. He likes Dunkirk, but Dunkirk's more of a piece of art. I think it's more
Yeah, it is.
music than it is dialogue.
It's so
And then you
random in
got,
Dunkirk when that guy dies in the boat. Oh, what was that?
oh yeah, that was so random. He
Like,
falls and knocks his head.
it's like the guys are sitting around the table with the script. It's like, okay, we need to lose
Okay,
a
we
couple
need
more
someone to
lives.
die.
There's not been enough bloodshed. Let's kill the kid. And he just knocks his head
Oh,
on the kitchen.
yeah, he knocks his head and dies like 12 hours later. But
Yeah,
and the funny thing is, Wilfie's watched enough of them that we watched Saving Private Ryan the other month,
yeah,
and he looked at me and he goes, "When was this filmed?" And I looked it up. I think it was like 1997 or somewhere in the 90s. He
yeah.
goes, "This holds up really well."
How old is he?
12.
God damn
Because
it.
even now, it hasn't dated, and so many of
Mm,
those war movies have dated. But Saving
yeah.
Private Ryan, he's like, this still holds up.
Do you still get emotional in movies? Because Gabe and I were, it was boys' night, and we were like, let's pick a movie. So he wanted to watch Roadhouse, which is like, it's got Conor McGregor in it, and
Oh my god,
not
terrible.
the Patrick
Roadhouse.
Swayze, yeah, not the Patrick
Yeah,
Swayze
it's
one,
the
the new
more
one, right?
recent one.
And then he wanted to watch Creed, which is looks really good actually. Stallone's, it's the last of the Rocky series where Apollo Creed, who was his first fight in the very first one, Apollo Creed's son, um, asks Rocky to train him because his son wants to be a
Yeah.
boxer. And we're having dinner, watching the preview to see which one to pick, and I was watching it, and after the preview, I was like, oh, that makes me feel emotional. Like, and you could see there was tears in my eyes a little bit, right? And he's like,
Mm.
really? And I was like, you don't get emotional? He's like, well, when the good guy, when the hero dies, that makes me cry. He's like, why do you get emotional? I'm like, well, I don't know. It's like when maybe it's just the hero's journey or something.
Mm. It
It
moves you.
still makes me, I don't know if it's something to do with the music. When someone rises up from the ashes,
Mm. The underdog.
um, yeah, or there's a big speech, or there's some kind of glory moment, it makes me emotional.
Mm.
I haven't quite put my finger on exactly what it is that does it, but I know that there's these points in movies, like Gladiator for sure. There's a couple of
Mm.
times where it's just like the music and the speech,
Yeah. Yeah.
when it's like, okay, it's us against 500 men type of thing.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
something that, so it's interesting because you can't conjure that up. Like one person could cry at that, and the person beside him doesn't feel any emotion towards that. And I think it depends on what type of makeup you are inside, right? That pulls on you. Like for me,
Well, I mean,
I can't even not feel emotion. Like the hairs on my arms stand up,
yeah,
and I think it's this call to
greatness.
be somebody, be
Yeah.
some not be somebody in like the spotlight, but just have a purpose, you know.
Yeah. Have something to fight for or to die for, or
Yeah, I mean, when I
but
would play
also
armies
as an adult.
with the Gollingses, I would be like, my leg would be blown off, and I would be crawling, and my gun wouldn't work. Like I was
Yeah.
constantly trying to make things difficult so that there was
Tragic.
this, yeah, difficult so that I could then rise above. And I was like
Mm.
8 years old, right? I don't know what I was doing, but subconsciously I was like, just simply running across the finish line and winning isn't enough for me. There has to be a story that gets me across the
Mm.
finish line. Like he comes across with a broken ankle. So for me,
Yeah.
when I was playing armies, I was always, oh, my leg's blown off. Oh shit! My gun doesn't work. It's jamming, and it's just make believe, right?
Yeah.
But then
But
I
I
was
think
like,
it's a love of storytelling as well, because it's not just we're going to take them down. There's a story that goes along with it that then
mm,
captivates you and draws
yeah,
you in.
yeah,
And I mean, we were watching Fury last night with Brad Pitt. That's a brilliant war movie. I mean, that is a piece of
hmm,
art. It's top. That's probably, I think he said number
oh yeah,
two. He said, All Quiet on the Western Front, Free, Dunkirk. There's 1917, which
yeah.
is not
That
his
is,
favourite, but I love that.
oh, that
It's
is
so
hard to
sad.
watch. All the
Well,
animals, rats crawling out of the friggin' horse's eyeballs, and
I know. But
Oh,
that is, if you watch All Quiet on the Western Front, I can't believe as a 12-year-old, when he says, let's watch that, I'm kind of like, oh, that's such an emotional investment for me
yeah,
because it's so sad and it's a teenage boy. Like, you know, you look at the age, like there's this incredible war movie called They Shall Not Grow Old. And Peter Jackson directed it, and it's real footage, the first ever footage of the war. They've
in
actually
color.
made it into color, and they've
I've
got,
seen some of that.
again, like you look at them and they're 15 years old going to the First World War, and
Yeah,
they wore for 3 years shoes that were too small for them, that they'd got off a dead person's
yeah.
body. You know, they just like, here are your here's what you've got, and you got to make it work. You've frozen a bit.
I
Are you
remember
there?
seeing part of that, and they were like everything. They'd be like eating their breakfast. Did I lose you?
Yeah, you did for a
You're
second.
there?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
here.
they'd be like eating their breakfast in the trenches, and they were all joking and laughing, and then there was like some kind of commentary where they said everything smelt like dead bodies, like death, even our
Mm,
bacon, because
yeah.
the smell was so strong in the air, and they're all like joking. I think what always hits me with those war movies is one that that I'm so precious about my life that I think about my funeral and how many people are going to show up. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And you
yeah.
realize that those guys, like, they would die and then a tank would just roll over their body and press them into the dirt,
Yeah.
and no one ever knew they were there. And
Yeah.
probably they're still there to this day, like there's just a farmer's
Uh-uh.
field.
Nothing.
Yeah, and so our sense of self-importance, like when you see those guys in the trenches and there's just bodies lying all over the place. I mean, each one of those people has a mum, has a dad, has
Mm,
a wife, has a brother and
mm,
sister. They must have really crossed a line when they realized I might not survive. I might not be around tomorrow. Like it's
mm,
only this. Like they
yeah.
must have really lived in the moment. Like you probably
Yeah.
didn't plan much for the future in your head even anymore. You just, smoking a cigarette was probably like they would just savor every little
Yeah.
puff, and
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I mean, so sleep deprived, and
Yeah.
just realizing the sense of self importance just kinds of must just evaporate,
Well, there must
and
be
you,
something animalistic about it where you're literally, it's just sheer survival and you're not thinking about, yeah, you're not thinking about the future for sure. Because in the They Shall Not Grow Old, they talk about being covered in lice and waking up and the rats chewing on their toe and being soaking wet because it would rain, and they would just have these little dugouts within the trenches to sleep in,
yeah,
and the water would sometimes come right up to where they're sleeping. So you've got the rats crawling around trying to
oh yeah,
nibble
because
you
they're
in
trying
your
to keep
sleep.
dry, so they're on top of you because you're the tallest thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then one of the guys said we would have these planks going through the bog, and they lost some of their friends because if you fell in that bog, you were gone and you just sank because
mm,
it was just this bog that you couldn't ever get out of. So
mm,
some people were just dying because of that. And then you'd get septicemia because you had a cut and there was no treatment for it. And they thought that they were going to war and it would be 2 weeks because the
yeah,
arrogance of England made them
hmm,
believe that they'd have a jolly good time.
yeah.
And I
Everyone
think
was
it
in.
was
Oh, this should
4 years.
be fun.
Yeah.
Be back in
And
a
then
couple
it was
weeks. Yeah,
that they were there, I think, 3 years. And then when they came back, because the newspapers hadn't honestly portrayed what was going on, the last line of that movie or that documentary was one of the lads going into a pub. He'd been away for several years in the war, and the guy has been like, where have you been? Have you been on night shifts or something? We haven't seen you around here for a while. And the total lack of recognition, they were poverty stricken when they came home. There
yeah.
was no, people didn't understand what they had been through at all.
No,
And they traded in their war uniform for one suit and a couple of shillings to on their way. And then a few years later, the Second World War started. And you just think they would have still been alive for that
yeah, yeah.
going.
I
But
mean,
then some of them
we
said,
got
I
no
had a
idea.
great time. Some of them said, oh, I really loved it because of the camaraderie and,
Yeah.
you know,
I guess it depends where you're posted, right? Like the movies don't focus on the less exciting spots, like the
no.
guys that are fixing the tanks and never see a bullet, and it's like
Yeah, yeah.
you got a record player and all, you have fun, but um What? We just got no idea. I mean, imagine coming back from that and then just being like not even noticed. Like, no wonder
Yeah,
there was
it's
so
awful.
much trauma from the Vietnam War. Like, those guys were actually villainized when they came back because of the anti-war propaganda
Right.
that was. So they
Yeah.
were told to go, and then when they came back, they were treated like villains.
And then they
God.
became homeless. A lot of Vietnam
Yeah.
veterans are homeless people.
Yeah.
No government support. I mean, the guys that I
Unbelievable.
just worked with who are Ukrainian, I said to them, "So have you lost any friends in the war?" And they looked at me and they said, "We lose friends every week. Every week we find out about some friend that's died in the war." And they left Ukraine so they didn't get enlisted because now they're just dragging everyone in, no matter what the age. And
Wow.
these are kind of guys in their 40s. But they said, no, we fled because we would get called up and all the friends that go in die, and every week we hear news of dead friends.
It's crazy.
Wow, not just one friend, like loads of friends are
Yeah.
just dying.
Didn't they show you video footage of missiles coming towards
Oh
their
yeah,
buildings?
for 6 months every night missiles coming towards their apartments. And then I think probably as they get called up older and older, okay, now it's the meat grinder, we
Hmm.
need every age, then they
Wasn't it?
leave.
It must have been hard for them to escape because you're a deserter at that point, aren't you?
I don't know how one of them went to Poland and then came here. I don't know. It's obviously the only people with money seem to be able to get out of there. They've given up really high flying jobs.
Yeah,
They're not poor.
yeah,
But it's hard because of the broken English to really assess it. But the look on their face when I asked them, "Have you lost anyone you know?" as if they would
yeah.
say, "One, yeah, my one of my friends died." They're like, "Oh yeah, every week someone's dying."
More trauma.
Yeah,
Yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah, yeah. It's totally wild. I
And
was when I
majority
was
of the
watching this
world.
when I was
Sorry, go
watching
ahead.
this Russia movie in Stalingrad. It was very historically correct. So when they would so say if there was like 2,000 of them going towards the German lines. When it got down to about 20 men left, they said, retreat, retreat, right? So, I mean, you look around, everybody's dead. So they retreated, and then they retreated into their own people, mowing them down with a machine gun because they were then considered deserters. So they just
No.
ran into their, yeah, and that was how they thought they should motivate the troops, is fear. So
Yeah.
if you, and then when the boat was getting nailed by the Spitfires coming down or whatever, the Messerschmitt planes, some of them jumped overboard, and then the captain, their captain, shot them in the water because now you're a deserter. And their
Wow.
logic was like, we'll make you so scared to leave that you will have to fight.
Mm,
And so that's the story, right, of the snipers. This one general says, no, we need to give people hope, and so they created this hero out of the
mm,
sniper,
right.
which is yeah, but
I mean, something I say to
uh,
Wilfie whenever we watch a war movie, I say you've got to remember, and all wars are bankers' wars. These people are fighting for bankers because this is a money making machine. Don't be ever thinking that this is for
it's
anything.
just
Nothing about this is, these individuals might be courageous, but they're not fighting for a courageous cause. They're fighting
no.
for the bankers in Wall Street and for those who are making huge amounts of money off ammunition and building machines and advancing science or whatever it is. But ultimately, the core of it is Wall Street, a money making scheme.
Minerals and oil and
Yeah, but don't be thinking any of this is for a good and just cause.
hmm
These people individually are very heroic, but they're not dying for a good reason, for a good cause to save their country. They're dying for men in suits in Wall Street who want to have a cash cow. You know, they're just motivated by moving numbers around,
yeah.
or it's a money
I mean the
laundering.
world.
Like, yeah,
But what do you think about the World War? Because you got Hitler, this monster that's trying to take over the whole of Europe. I mean, definitely the war machine was making money, but that seemed, man, sounds like you got sirens going out your place. They're coming
yeah,
to
something.
arrest you.
Well, from the historian that I listen to, or maybe I'll wait till this is gone. It's kicking off.
Little do you know that your house is on fire.
Yeah.
Keep on podcasting.
Okay. Is that better?
That's fine.
From the historian I listen to, is that he would say and I've heard this from multiple sources, is that um, the Second World War was funded, both sides were funded by Wall Street, and that Hitler was handpicked and funded by Wall Street to achieve a certain end because they wanted to bring in a fascist regime. But he then went rogue, where he had this personal vendetta towards the Jews. That was not part of the plan, but that both sides of World War One and Two were funded by Wall Street. So it was a strategic setup to bring in, because was it King George was abdicated because he married Wallis Simpson, who was a divorcee. He was chosen to be the fascist king of England, but he
Mm.
abdicated because of this relationship, and so
Well, he's
they
trying to make a
lost.
deal with Hitler, right? Historically, in mainstream
Yeah.
history,
Oh,
he tried.
On the Edge of War, have you seen that? That's a brilliant movie. That's a brilliant movie. There's so many. Fury, Edge of War, that they're
Well, what's some?
two
Well, the
brilliant
Winston
ones.
Churchill one is pretty bloody good.
Yeah, that was good. But a lot of people, and this would be like really controversial, would see Winston Churchill as much of a warmonger as Hitler, because he was aware they were funding Hitler. This was all part of their plan to turn Europe into a fascist regime. And if, I believe he's King Edward, I can't remember which one abdicated, but if he hadn't abdicated and had remained king, and if Hitler had behaved himself and followed their blueprint, then the whole of Europe would be a fascist dictatorship. But he went rogue, and then the king abdicated, and then it all just turned to custard. But the funding came from Wall Street for that.
Mm. Well,
That's the
your
more what they take out of the history.
conspiratorial
Very, very.
view.
What's not
It's
in the history books?
yeah, it's funny how that can upset so many people, right?
Mm,
Anything that colors outside the lines of the books that have been stamped and sealed, history books,
yeah,
just pisses people off. I wonder what that
yeah.
is. I think it's just this human need to want to have everything tucked away and put to bed.
A
You know, like
simplistic
don't tell me that
childlike.
people didn't land on the moon, because I
Yeah,
just can't handle
yeah,
that was fake. I would rather believe the comfortable lie than the
yeah.
uncomfortable truth. And I think most people are, if they would hate to admit it, but most people fall within that category,
Mm,
because conspiracy theories to me feel like the smarter way of looking at the world, right?
mm,
Like
yeah,
I don't know if those are the correct words to use, but it's because you're not taking things at self space value. Like if no one said, "I think we can make an engine," like when you were selling horse and carts, and just like they were just carts were just flying off the shelves, and some guy comes and says, "I think I can make a combustible engine that we don't even need a horse," they were probably considered nutcases. Like
yeah. There's
we got a
resistance
good
there,
thing
probably.
going, we got a good thing
Mm.
going. What? Who the fuck are you
Who
to
do you
come in here
think
and
you are?
yeah, just leave it alone. Like leave it alone. And I think yeah, a lot of yeah. So I mean, it's funny. Like I think conspiracy theories are very interesting, and but there's
Mm.
this like I wonder why we feel um, slightly self-censored to not
Well,
share them because weird,
the
right?
history of the word conspiracy theory was created by the CIA after JFK was assassinated. The public outcry was, we believe that the CIA did this. And it was so overwhelming because people were waking up. They say that the death of JFK was the birth of modern era that we're in now, from like naivety and believing the newspapers were just factual to being
Uh,
gaslit by the newspapers, where they created the phrase they created the phrase conspiracy theory. Some people have a conspiracy theory that JFK was killed by the CIA, and they started to put that in newspaper publications, and it was the first time that the general public got gaslit into in publications that were normally like Mr. Smith died on this day. It was very factual. And then they started weaponizing information in publications. And that phrase, conspiracy theory, was designed for the JFK assassination to gaslight the public, to make them feel like they were being stupid for thinking such a thing. And then you think from that, it's grown into people who question the landing on the moon are conspiracy theories, people who question did did the Wall Street fund both sides of the Second World War? All of the things that it's led to
Mm-hmm.
started at that moment when the public started to awaken from naivety, started to have more critical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
started to think, hey, all is not well. Maybe they're lying about this. Maybe it wasn't, who the fuck did they frame that guy, Oswald? And then when you look at footage now of the landing on the moon and the flappy doors and the fact that the Jeep can't fit back in the spaceship that goes back to Earth, and then them leaving the moon and someone's filming it. I'm like, how did that guy get home? The whole thing is just such a shambles. But now when you look at it,
Yeah.
you think the naive mind of the 1960s person and what they had available to them as far as special effects was really
Mm-hmm.
limited. All they had was a studio and a flappy, like, makeshift spaceship. But a
Mm-hmm.
modern, more less naive person looks back at that and goes, well, that's clearly like a complete fabrication. But it's almost like we're gradually awakening into human beings aren't adolescent anymore. We're kind of
Mm-hmm.
almost adults, and we've got almost critical thinking that can look at something and go, wait a minute, something's up here.
Well, I think the
Or that, I think, yeah, the age of information has allowed us
yeah,
to become more critical thinking.
because there was only one form of news, which was the newspapers, right? And then the news.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
And
and
that was
before
factual.
that, it was like, in
It
the Protestant, or I don't know, back in the like John Wesley days, no
was
one could
the
read.
farmer's market.
Yeah, so no one could
Like, how
read. So
else would
you had
news
to
spread?
trust the guy that could read the book because he's the guy that can
Right.
read. No one else can read. So you do what he says. And I realize like we are like if you look at your children, like Gabriel, he like stupid little example really, but he bought this like Temu, that website just
Yeah.
sells
Yeah.
shit
Yeah.
from China,
Like, yeah.
cheap crap from China, and so he got this little blender. So he's like, oh, I can make a shake, and then blah blah blah. And so he tries to use it yesterday because we go mountain biking. So he throws a bunch of fruit in there, and then he gets some frozen fruit. And the motor is so weak, it's like and it won't
Yeah.
it won't grind it up, right? And he's like, Dad, we could take the bottom apart and put a bigger motor in it, and then that would grind it, right? And I just kind of like laughed it off. I'm like, yeah, it's not gonna work, Gabe. You're just gonna wreck the
Yeah.
thing, and
Just throw it away.
and you think that's exactly what we do as parents, right? We're like, you can do this, but you can't do that. And damn it,
Mm.
listen to me.
Yeah.
Because Gabe comes up with these harebrained ideas. And I, as the guardrail person, have to, sometimes I entertain them, and
Mm.
often it ends bad. And he's into RC cars. He's got this RC car. Every time he gets one, he wants to modify it, take it apart, which is what I
Yeah.
did as a kid. Could never put
Yeah.
it back together again. And it
Right.
ends in
So it's just
tears
a
because
waste.
I broke it. And I think as parents, we need to nurture that curiosity and that willingness to, like, I think we can make something better than what's already been made. Like he's constantly like, whether it's boating or fishing, or he's always thinking of what he thinks is a better way to do things. And often I feel as a parent just to say, and I've said this lots, and kind of, I said, just do what everyone else is doing.
Mm.
It's simpler. It's already been figured out. And so sometimes just to cut through all of the bullshit and get from point A to point B, I sometimes will say that, like in not in a mean way, but my motivation is like I'm thinking ahead, and I'm thinking it might end in tears, and I'm thinking this is just a lot of energy. Just do what. And so
Waste
I
of
think,
time.
yeah, and then you kind of macro back and you see as most people want you to just go along with what. Why do you have to
Mm.
be such a problem?
Well,
Just
a
follow.
dictatorship is so much easier for the leaders, isn't it? Just like when we were growing up, being spanked and having corporate punishment was so much easier for the parent. Like if
Yeah,
we had
beat
spanked
the
our
shit out of
children
them.
more, it's an easier experience for the parent, but it's harder on the child. Whereas having a child where you're trying to teach them critical thinking, it's messier and more difficult for the parent, but
Mm,
better for the child.
mm,
So I can totally see the appeal of a dictatorship, and I can see the appeal of
mm.
having a very disciplinarian parenting style, because
Right.
life is just so much easier without emotion. If you've
Yeah.
got a home where your kids are scared of you and they're never going to have a tantrum or a meltdown, how much nicer would it be as a
Yeah.
parent to have that experience? It's like, children should be seen and not heard. No one's got any
It's
extreme
great.
emotion. Like, we're having a great time and the kids are then fucked up. But
Yeah.
the other one is, it's a lot more fuckery going on when you allow your kids to explore and be inconveniently emotional and do unscheduled poops, and just the whole thing is chaos. And I can see that with the leaders, with, let's say, the conspiracies around JFK assassination, why the government would go, this is really inconvenient, because if they distrust us and if they find out we were behind it, then
Mm,
they'll never trust their government, and it's ruined this whole dynamic. And so it's hugely inconvenient. Recently, when the bunch of women went to the moon, did you see that? It was so embarrassing. Katy Perry. Did you see like the Jeff
oh yeah.
Bezos? They didn't go to the moon. They went up into space and then
Right.
came down again 10 minutes later. It was just a
Right.
disaster. But because people are so knowledgeable and critical minded now, you've got the whole of TikTok analyzing, okay, that's wrong, that's wrong. Oh, Jeff Bezos opened the door too soon and it was a flimsy door and he should have done the kind of pretend mechanisms because there's safety procedures. But the whole thing was just a shambles. And right off the bat, the public didn't buy it. Whereas with the moon landing, the public weren't as knowledgeable and they weren't as
Mm,
critical minded, and they did buy it, and some people still do. And you think how much we've advanced, but it's hugely inconvenient to for the government to have a whole population of critical minded, detail orientated people who are going, I think, we're calling them out all the
mm.
time,
Well, it
and
is like,
us kind of outliers are the most inconvenient, the ones who won't get vaccinated and who won't wear masks and won't comply. It's like, oh, fucking hell, we've got the most uncompliant, unruly,
hmm,
population. Like 20% of the population are just a pain in the ass.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, it came up a lot with these conversations I've been having with, man, it's been so interesting with like Todd and Tara. Those ones haven't aired yet, and Rick Leaf, that one hasn't aired yet, and just seeing this kind of similarity. But what I realized, when I'm looking back at these kind of religious experiences that you and I have both had that are borderline cultish, when I said this to Todd, I'm like, there's a lack of accountability. Like to have a radical, charismatic leader, which Hitler was, and I mean, so many leaders from history,
Mm.
without guardrails, so without a board, without being answerable. I remember we would mock the churches that had boards. They're like, yeah, we think we want to add a little bit extra to our parking lot in the church. That needs to go through the boards. It's going to take a couple months, and one person doesn't want to do it. So now we got to convince him. And I guess it didn't work. We can't add more space to the parking lot because two of our board members are dead against it because it's going to
Yeah,
knock down a
the
tree that they
deacon,
love.
there's
Yeah, well,
hierarchy.
so to get from point A to point B took forever.
Mm.
But you A/B that with the churches that we were involved in, where you have a single leader who is very controlling and charismatic and has fear, puts fear into people, right?
Mm.
Then they get to from point A to point B very fast because they don't have to ask
Mm.
anybody. If they
Yeah,
want to tell everyone to dress in orange on Sunday because that's what's going to bring revival,
yeah.
everyone's and they don't have to ask if that's a good idea. They just do it. But the
Mm.
but the looking back, the wounded that have come from that are
Yeah.
massive. Whereas you go to the board church and they're still fiddling around trying to get onto the
Yeah.
highway.
The Anglicans with all their committees and deacons and
Yeah,
and
pr-
the
probably
treasurer.
less damage is done because you've got people saying, "Hang on a minute."
Mm.
I
Calm
mean,
down, calm down.
like I'm
Yeah,
sure Mr. Trump would love not to have to answer to the Senate or whatever the hell they do. If
yeah.
he had just free reign to do whatever he wanted whenever he wanted, that's why he's
Mm.
doing these executive orders, right? Because it cuts through all of that. Get her
Right.
done. But there's lots of damage that happens that way because there's no
Yeah.
checks and balances. And I don't know where I was
You
going
can
with that.
see how for the government, the fact that people are so disillusioned, not only with the government, but also this traditional church model that's all about really kind of dictating what people should do. Like it starts with only the clergy can read the Bible, or whoever it was who was
Mm,
literate. Like they say, the printing press was the most revolutionary moment
yeah,
because then people had access to information for the first time in human history, that every man could read a book and gain knowledge. And it's just unraveled since then. And their ability to control humans has become gradually more and more unhinged.
well,
And
the
you
internet
think,
was the other one, right? Big one,
yeah. And you
because it
think
was those
now,
newspapers. Yeah.
yeah, well, before that, it was the Bible and scrolls, and only
Mm,
the what would you call it, like the rabbi could read, or the
mm,
vicar or whatever could read, and then tell the
mm,
people what it said. And people were completely illiterate. And I remember hearing a guy said the war that took place when the printing press actually was established was all about top down, like we have to contain these people who are now going to have access to knowledge, and we won't be
mm,
able to control them anymore. And
mm.
it's and people say that all the time, it's not right versus left, it's top versus down, because our leaders are just gradually losing control on every level, and there's just pure panic on the other side of them just seeing humans going out there finding out the information for themselves and getting
Yeah,
to the
well,
bottom of things and
listen to
going, actually,
podcasts
this
and
is
long
just
form.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
How can they regulate something like YouTube or podcasts? And it doesn't matter, the information is moving faster than they can move. And
but yeah. I mean, the funny thing is that the majority of people love to watch the movie about, Braveheart, for instance. Everyone loves it. Everyone cheers for him. Like no one's against the character of Braveheart, right? No one's like, oh God, he should just shut the hell up. Like, it's like, no, no, talk, speak out, stand up,
yeah,
and we're all cheering him. Everybody from every side of the aisle. But then when it comes to reality, when it's asked of you, most
yeah,
people, if you're the guy that's playing the Braveheart role, they're like, shut up.
you're going to be hung,
Like,
drawn, and quartered.
you're going to be hung, drawn, and quartered. It's just, and you're a complete pain in the ass, and they
Mm,
join in with the kind of crucify, crucify. I keep saying, it's
mm,
like, the
yeah,
rabble.
yeah,
I mean, I think that one of the most prophetic movies is Life of Brian. You know,
yeah,
I mean, so incredibly old, but
yeah,
so on with with
yeah,
with just
on
how
point.
humans,
Yeah.
yeah, like like have you seen it? Like,
I want to be a girl and I want to be called Loretta. Do
yeah,
you remember when one of them wants to
stupid
become a woman?
idea.
It's my
You won't be.
right as a man to be a woman.
Yeah, it's so
But
ahead
you
of its
can't
time.
be a woman. You haven't got a womb. What's that got to do with anything?
No, and then they're chasing Brian, and
Yeah,
Brian's sandal falls off, and
yeah.
the whole crowd stop. His sandal fell
Sandal.
off. We got to have one sandal, so they all take their one sandal off and keep on chasing him because it's all about that.
The
And then
best opening scene is Jesus on the Mount, and in the distance they can't hear quite. Blessed are the cheesemakers. And then they just start having a fight. So, they start squabbling between them, and before you know it, there's just a full blown fight breaking out.
well, isn't there different sects that come like separate? Like, oh, it's the cheesemaker
Yeah,
group,
yeah. It's
and
brilliant.
then he's
It's
sleeping
absolute
with,
genius.
he has the night with Mary, opens up the windows of
Opens the door
Jerusalem,
and he's butt
and he's
naked.
butt naked, and there's like 2,000 people, and he's like,
Uh,
oh fuck. And then he's like, you don't need to follow me. And they all repeat, we don't need to follow. You can be whoever
yeah,
you want to be. We can be whoever we want to be. And he's just like, you're not getting it.
yeah, it's brilliant.
That used to be absolute sacrilege to even talk
I
about Life of Brian.
didn't even watch it until recently.
Do you remember?
Probably.
Do you remember when Alanis' Jagged Little Pill came out in the Toronto
Yeah,
Airport Vineyard, and they thought that when she was saying "one hand in my pocket," she was masturbating. And you can't listen to that song. I got one hand in
yeah,
my pocket, and the
yeah.
other is giving a high
I'm
five.
putting a piece up. Yeah, yeah.
Peace sign, yeah. And they like, and it was like, oh, juicy. I remember there's like this in the. I remember them talking about it. It's like, yeah, but do you know what she's actually doing? And
Yeah.
then all of a
I
sudden, it's just
remember
like this
where
juicy.
you'd go to see a movie and sitting there going, if there's one more swear word, we're getting up and walking out,
Yeah, we're
because
edgy.
there would be this like maximum amount of swear words that you could expose yourself to, and then no, that's it, they've crossed a line, now we're going to get out and walk out of the movie. Just like,
Yeah,
oh my god, so
we are the
sad.
rebels. We are the
That's how devoted we are to goodness, that we won't sit and watch this movie with swear words in.
how virtuous we are.
Yeah, pat ourselves on the back. Oh my God. But it's
It,
amazing to think that even if you haven't grown up with religion, it seems that now we've come out of that. It's across the board, this threat that leaders have of their people, whether it's citizens or church members,
mm.
thinking for themselves, questioning, unraveling their thought processes.
I think
And
there's, yeah, and
that's,
there's a lot of fear, right? About,
mm,
well, fear is one of the biggest controllers. Like if in England, if they can make you afraid, if they can show you that we're going to actually beat your door down and put you in jail because of posting on social media, that works.
mm,
Like that,
yeah,
that definitely is probably working. Because people will be
yeah,
like, I want to post this, but do I want to get arrested? Fuck up the
mm,
whole, nah, I won't bother posting
yeah,
it. And I remember through COVID when they said they were going to seize our bank accounts, and I remember it
mm,
being at the grocery store lineup in my debit card and I had no cash. And I was like, how's it going to feel if my debit card just doesn't work because I supported the trucker convoy?
yeah,
Like, and there's no one else to support me and everyone's staring at me and I'm holding up the line and I have to take all my groceries back. Like
yeah.
that reality, that was a thought of a
I
reality.
remember
And I'm
feeling
like,
it too.
yeah, not sure I want to go through that. I got
It
to
was
bring home,
really uncomfortable.
yeah, so I can't
That's
bring
when
home,
shit
home
hits
from.
the fan, the rubber hits the road. How much do you believe in this? It tests you to your limits.
And I'm noticing with some of these conversations I'm having, like with Christianity, like I really respect Todd a lot, and he's a far more educated man than I. But I still sense this kind of like he says a couple things in that interview. He's like, "I love the bride, but the bride doesn't love me." Oh, like, and I'm like, what are you talking? Because the church is supposed to be the bride of Christ, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, I think you're overthinking it. That's the way my brain thinks. I'm like, I think it's like a metaphor. It's not
Mm,
he's not when he comes back, he's not actually going to gather I don't think, all of the believers that went to church on Sunday and kept this archaic system, damaging system
mm,
going. I don't think he's going to be like, yeah, you're my guys. I think I just don't understand this deep loyalty to the bride
mm.
of Christ. Like I'm
It's
like,
such a foreign thing that even hearing it, it feels like, eh? It just sounds so foreign to me, like a foreign language.
yeah, like I had a friend
Of
reach
I'm
out to me
trying
who
to
listened
reach
to
into
it.
the archives of my memory to figure out the thinking, because
I will
the
build my
key
church
part
and the
is,
gates of hell will not prevail against it.
well, it's the thought that people actually still believe Jesus is coming back. Is, if Jesus isn't coming back, which I don't think he is, I think he's no different than Buddha. He was a very enlightened person who lived 2000 years ago, who is now dead. If just like Buddha is dead, everyone accepts that Buddha is dead and he's not coming back. No one, as far as I know, no one talks about the return of Buddha. So if Jesus isn't coming back, then the bride of Christ is irrelevant, because what are we all, these people are preparing for the next second coming, but that's not happening. So the bride is irrelevant. To me, I feel like I'm in a sliding scale on earth of heaven and hell, that the more that consciousness can awaken in nature and in human beings, the sliding scale towards a more aware and consciously aware world where there is less hellish lives happening. Like right now, there's many people living in sheer hell, probably the majority of the population. So we're probably more in hell than we are in heaven. But
Mm,
I feel that this exists right now. We are in a sliding scale of heaven and hell. And the more people that can live conscious lives, the more that lifts us out of the hellish experience that is,
mm,
for a lot of people, their lived experience of earth. And if the most ideal would be the entire earth becomes self-aware and enlightened and conscious, therefore there is a lot less hate, we will be closer and
mm,
closer to a new heaven and a new earth, and that nature is already awakened and is waiting around for us to get with the program.
mm,
Like the human race is lagging behind that
Yeah.
animals, nature, grass, and trees are already
Mm.
aware, conscious, living in the moment, but totally present. And
Mm-hmm.
humans who have a choice of
Yeah.
ill intent and evil are just so archaically behind the rest of nature. And then once we
Yeah.
awaken, then you've got a new heaven and a new earth. That's what I believe. That the bride of Christ
I mean,
and the return of Jesus is completely irrelevant.
it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that people are getting hung up on, I mean, I've felt for a long time that the Bible is become an idol, like a golden calf, because all of this stuff that is from the Bible, right? All of these and it seems to put people in this arrested development state. Um, and I mean, I remember when I met Tara, she was talking about, this 20 years, 15 years ago, maybe more. She was the first time she would talk about like taking care of the earth and like recycling and stuff. And I'd
Mm.
be like, what? And she'd be like,
As
oh,
you
don't
threw
drop that
your
water on
wrapper
the
out the
floor.
window.
And yeah, and actually in Christianity, what I remember, there was no regard for the earth because this is all going to burn up.
Exactly.
And so you're
Yeah.
you're banking all of your energy into this fairy tale
Second.
ending. So
Yeah.
this world is, and I remember it being shocking to me that Tara would start to, because that was considered New Age, like loving
Mm.
the earth. Remember tree hugging or anything to
Yeah.
do with meditate, even meditation, like opening yourself
Yoga.
up was
Yeah.
considered New Age, and opening yourself up to devilish type of
Mm.
realms. And I distinctly remember like it was really like a light bulb slowly being turned on when Tara would start to like, and I remember the first time I did yoga with Tara, and this was after the band days, so I was really out of church kind of the circuit, and really questioning the existence of God and Jesus and all of that stuff. And I remember doing yoga and looking at my body, and I was like, and we were just in my old basement. I'm like, sounds weird, but I've never looked at my legs before. They're all right. I'm like, actually,
Yeah.
because we were so raised to like, there was no health talk in the church much. It was just like,
Mm.
screw that. We're going to get martyred in a year anyway. Like, what's the point in taking
Mm.
care of your body? What's the point in taking care of the earth? What's the point in any of that?
Yeah.
It's all centered towards Jesus coming again. Do you
The
remember that?
second.
I mean, I don't know if you
Yeah.
felt like that.
And almost those things of caretaking and being a good steward would be seen as materialistic because you're basically hung up on the temporary, on the objects. So
Mm,
to this life was so irrelevant that to be in a miserable marriage was really not a big deal because
mm,
what does it matter? This is just the trial run before heaven, and that's the
mm,
real deal. And I remember when I left Christianity, all of a sudden felt like my life was extremely short because I had been born into
wasted
this
it.
infinity. Yeah, I thought, oh, I'm going to live forever, basically. I had this
Mm,
infinity mentality that I'll cross over
mm.
into the second life. And then it just keeps going on and on and on. And then when I thought, oh, heaven doesn't exist, that means I've only got another like 40 years left.
Best enjoy it.
Shit. And then I started rethinking how I live my life and seeing it as more
Mm,
precious and more worthwhile. But I had such a disregard for my own happiness and anything like you. I believed that what was going on down here is mostly not very relevant. We don't take it with us. All of it will burn up.
mm,
And now I see it as a sliding scale of heaven and hell. I think everything, paying attention to my dogs and acknowledging their level of consciousness awakens more consciousness in them, I believe, because I'm watching their true self, just acknowledging it. Like sometimes I'll look at a snail and think, I'm just going to acknowledge because no one ever has. This snail's just lived its life. I'm not having anyone look at it, and perhaps it will
mm,
bring greater consciousness to anything that I pay attention to. The
mm,
more the trees can awaken to higher consciousness, the more the universe will gradually wake up to higher consciousness. The more we're
mm,
likely to get out of this hell that we seem to inflict on ourselves.
mm.
And I do think that we're already in it right now. And this
I think
dangly carrot of an afterlife is so wasteful.
I think it's an escape, right? I mean, I think that like I was saying to Todd, I said, when I go into a church now, it seems like everyone's in arrested development. Like, really? A friend of mine watched that interview and sent me a huge text last night, putting scriptures. It says in John 3:16, it says in Galatians, and I sent him a voice message back and said, I love you, man, but none of what you've just told me really interests me. And I'm not saying it like he took the time to listen to the podcast. He took the time to write this crazy long response, and I haven't read it in detail. But as soon as I started to read it, I just, if I'm honest, my heart just checked out. Because I'm like,
Mm.
it doesn't pique anything in me. It doesn't, like the knobs that you're trying to turn don't work anymore. The
Mm.
wires have been disconnected. So when I read that and I feel like you feel like you've got an argument that might sway me, I'm
Mm.
sorry, but it's not working. And
Yeah.
I sometimes feel, and this would offend a lot of people, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but I feel like believing in all of like the second coming and all of this stuff, it's a cop out in a way. It's like I don't have to think about, I remember, maybe that's why I felt kind of blissful in the church, because we were super poor. I could barely put food on the table. I couldn't afford new shoes for my kids, but I felt totally fine with it because I was living, God was blessing that, because he kind of blessed the poverty and the poor and the
Mm.
and in actual fact, the thought that could have jumped in my head, like, hey, your kids deserve to go to Disneyland. You should work
Mm.
hard for that because that's an experience. Or your kids deserve to go skiing. You
Mm.
know, that thought never came into my head, and I blocked it out. And it's actually a more peaceful way of living, right? Because
Mm.
you believe that God has called you to be poor
Mm.
for the greater good.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think believing in this like mystical second coming. I mean, it's a bit of a cop out, because it's like, well,
Yeah.
there's no point in owning a house, like actually owning a
Yeah.
house, just rent, because it's all going to burn
Yeah.
up anyway.
Don't
So
have a
don't work
pension.
towards
Don't
that.
prepare for the
Don't
future.
Yeah, don't prepare for that. So it's almost like, so you think you're doing taking the high road and living a more godly life existence, but in actual fact you're just running away from hard work.
Taking,
you
taking full
know,
responsibility for your life.
like, yeah, taking responsibility, like building, you buy a house so that your kids will have something when you're dead. And
Yeah,
so
but
it's a
that would be
kind of
a bit
selfish
materialistic.
cop out. Exactly.
And that's what seems childlike.
Building up
And then
treasures on earth, God
right,
forbid.
but then they also, the argument would be, well, you've got to have faith like a child. And it is a very childlike faith that these people have, where they go, God will look after me. I just need to live by faith and trust him. And, I'll get
Mm,
my reward in heaven. So if my kids don't have shoes on earth, they'll have great shoes in heaven or whatever. And it seems very naive and childlike to me, but their argument would be, well, Jesus says you must have faith like a child. So they've got an argument to back up their behaviors. And then, like
pick and choose.
what Jenny's experiencing, where she's sharing that podcast with people who are still Christians, they think that they can still win her back by, you know, biblical references. And I think what
Mm,
must be so strange for a Christian to look at people like us and go, if I just told them this, then they would come back to the fold. And they don't realize that no argument will bring us back, because A, we don't want to go back. And it's not
yeah.
to do with, we didn't leave there based on arguments. We left there for a million reasons, but mostly this awakening, probably, to taking responsibility for my own life. There's
Mm.
just a million reasons, but you're not going to get one back by quoting scripture. It's just not going to.
Yeah, I mean,
The ship
Rick Leaf
sailed.
said something when I was talking to Rick Leaf, because I don't know if you remember him. He was
Yeah.
involved in the Winnipeg, David Ruiz. And he said this, and I haven't aired his conversation yet, but he's like, I can't remember how he framed it. He's like, the leadership doesn't mind if you argue with them, because then they can make an example of you, and everyone's rooting for the lead guy, right? The
Mm.
pastor. So that
Yeah.
actually bolsters their position. He says, what the church and leadership hates above all else is when you ignore them. That drives them crazy, especially narcissistic leaders.
Mm.
And I think that what perplexes people like Jenny's family and like
Mm.
The friend that texted me last night, and what perplexes them is like, so I'm putting a lure down in the water, a big shiny lure, and he's not
Not
even
taking
biting.
any bites.
What the
Yeah.
hell? Like I've got a rat trap, a humane rat trap in our chicken house, right? And it catches a lot of rats. But the older ones have figured it out. And so I put peanut butter in there the other day. I'm like, there's no way they're going to resist the peanut butter, right? So they go
Mm.
inside the trap and then they can't get back out again. And I take them down into the forest and let them go. And the rat's like, yeah, no, I figured it
I'd go
out.
without the peanut butter,
So I don't
thanks.
care how strong that peanut butter smells, ain't going in there. And so I'm like
Wow.
thinking, what? I
Mm.
thought it was just two-dimensional. Peanut butter equals get the rat. Period. No,
No.
actually, the rat outsmarted me.
Wow.
And so I think people are kind of like bewildered. They're like, and so they probably pray and think, "Oh, he's still lost at sea.
Yeah.
Poor
And they'll
boy." And
say
in
he's
actual,
truly hardened his heart completely. Wow, he's got a
yeah,
hard heart.
but it's not.
Yeah.
It's so far from the truth. In actual fact, I feel so much more. I see God in so much more. You know,
But they
just
would
seeing God in
listen
the
to that and
Bible is
go,
so bloody boring. It's like he's not just there.
I think people who are still in that would listen to us, and that's where they can't compute. How come these guys are feeling so good about where they are right now? I think they then just have to go, that doesn't make sense. That's fucking with my head. There's no sense to be made of the fact that these people feel.
Hmm,
I think they must think they're even deeper in deception, like they've fallen. They actually think they're happy. They actually feel. They think they've got peace, but it's not real. It's not peace from above. It's
hmm.
it's it's a synthetic version of peace. You know?
What? Yeah, I mean, it's exactly the same mirror image of what we just went through with COVID, right? Because when I started seeing the Matrix, and I hate to use that
Yeah.
metaphor, it's almost in the dictionary now. Like when you see things for their true value, you see the Matrix. People think, poor you.
Mm.
You look like a tortured soul, like you're actually
Yeah.
frustrated and angry about the establishment, and it looks like you're upset.
Yeah.
And I remember speaking, vocalizing this on Instagram and stuff, thinking, this is an amazing place to be.
Yeah.
Like Toto
Yeah.
the dog pulled back the curtain, and I saw that there was just this fuddy old magician making all of
Mm.
this smoke and lights. And I don't know if the two sides will ever see each other's point of view properly, because I still to this day, I think people think that believing in a conspiracy or believing what I think is truth, knowing truth or having an open mind to be able to not trust the person in the white coat who says
Mm.
take this injection or have that pill or this is the way it is. This war was because of such and such. And from our perspective, I think is an incredible feeling
Oh, feels
because it's like,
incredible.
yeah, it's like seeing the true colors, right? Like it's like,
Yeah.
but from the other side, I think they think, oh, they're
They've
all
got to be in
wound
their
up and
bonnet. They've got a chip
angry
on
and
their
they got to be in their
shoulder.
bonnet, and it's like, oh, it's like seeing the truth for what it is like so freeing. It's
Yeah.
amazing
But
because
then
it
I think,
feels like a mature position to be in. It's like not trusting the professor or the preacher or the
yeah,
physician.
yeah.
Like questioning it is like, it feels like you've entered manhood or womanhood or fullness.
But if you're in the church and you hear about someone leaving Christianity, you think, oh my God, they've completely lost their way. They're not experiencing the sense of liberation to suddenly have the scales fall away and see what's reality. And for onlookers who are in that system, they would think, oh, poor guy, man, he's truly lost. He's really got to be in his bonnet. And
Mm,
maybe there's ways that it's presented that give that impression, but it stuck with me where someone said, and it seems to work across the board, where you're saying you're not taking the bite because a Christian isn't intriguing you with any of their jargon. But it's the same with the government. The most powerful thing we can do is walk away into the woods and not give them any of our attention and set
mm,
up a different way of living that doesn't
mm,
include them in any way. So you can bang on the door and say, you're you're corrupt, you're this and that. There's a period of time where I think that happens, where you awaken and you want to have a voice and get on your soapbox and say, this is wrong, this is not true, you've lied to us, and you feel indignant. And then there's this moment that comes with leaving Christianity and leaving the kind of system of the world is where you walk off like you have into on Vancouver Island and you go, I'm going to do it my way and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
create obviously you haven't done it in an extreme sense, but to walk away disempowers them because they're not even hooking you anymore. So when the latest thing lands that they expect people to get all het up about, there's a certain percentage of the population that aren't even paying attention, that are so busy creating. Like my feeling now is, how can I thrive in an environment where I've got a government that doesn't want me to thrive? My full attention now is thriving in spite of the ill intent of the government
Mm-hmm.
I live under, and defying their agenda to crush me by living the freest life I can possibly imagine and pull off, given the
Mm-hmm.
circumstances. And I feel like that is probably the biggest threat to them of anything, is not them not getting any attention, because all, what do they say, like all what's it like, all attention is marketing for them. Like, if as long as you're
Yeah,
online and you're in conversation,
exactly. Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
what
it's
they
like Rick
want.
Leaf said, just ignore them. It creates them the most angst. I mean, we've been
Yeah.
conditioned since we were children, right? To obey the doctor, obey the parent, obey the preacher, obey the police officer, obey. I find
Mm,
myself doing it to my children less and less now. Like with my kids here, what the saying is, break the rule if the rule doesn't make sense, and don't get caught doing it. So when Gabe
yeah.
asked me, can I drive my motorcycle, which is not road legal, and he's not road legal, down to the beach, and I full well know that there could be a cop driving by, I'm
Mm.
like, do it.
Just don't get caught, mate.
Chances are, yeah, chances of you getting caught are pretty slim, and if you get caught, I'll
Mm,
take the slap on this, but do it, And so when I
yeah.
load them up into the back of my truck, and they're like, can we drive in the back of the truck home?
Mm,
There is a recklessness to that, because if you get in an accident, they get thrown out of the truck and die. But
yeah.
I'll drive slow, and we're on a country lane. But it's like
Yeah.
constantly, I'm constantly encouraging my children to argue the status quo, to push
Mm,
back, and I still feel in me that remember when you were talking to mom about Airbnb and she didn't want to do it for cash, and you said, well, don't you understand that it's just the government's just the mafia, like
yeah.
like this loyalty to. And I think there's a scripture that's in, like, burnt into me, like is like, give to Rome, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, build up treasures in heaven, all of this stuff. You like just detangling from some of that stuff, decoupling from it. Do you realize that giving your money to this, you're supporting corruption?
Yeah. 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 Completely.
And there is some of it, like, I pay my taxes because they take care of the roads, sort of, and I'm
Yeah.
mostly off grid here, so we've got well water and still need electricity, but it's yeah, it's like decoupling from these kind of really old system beliefs that we have, that the police officer is always right and we need to cower
Mm,
under him, and we don't look at our rights. You actually have a right to speak back. You have a right to
yeah.
challenge. You
Yeah.
have a right to. I'm going to be talking with Mike Toolman from town here eventually, and he's into the sovereign movement, and I don't
Okay.
quite buy into it because it triggers me. It feels just like another cultic organization.
Voltage. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting what they're going after, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking the other day, and this would be a good question to ask you. I was thinking, if I could sum up my life so far to date in one word, what would my experience of this life be in one word? And for me, I mean, that is a difficult question, but I would say my one word would be exciting. I would say I've had an exciting life. Now, some
Mm,
people looking in would think, oh, she's had a really difficult life. But, and yeah, that, like, we're all facing ridiculous challenges, but I would say my life has been really exciting. And then I was
mm,
thinking about, why has it been exciting? Because if you put a GPS on me for the last 10 years and followed my movements from a physical perspective, I've ping ponged between a 5 mile radius for 10 years. If I'm not at my rental, I'm at home or on the road picking kids up. So
mm,
I haven't gone to Haiti and helped people in earthquakes. I haven't gone to Iran. I haven't geographically, if you looked at the GPS of my life, I've ping ponged a 5 mile radius for 10 years. So why the fuck do I think I've got an exciting life? Then I kind of went below that and I thought, the reason I think I've had an exciting life because of all the activity in my head. My thoughts
Mm.
are exciting to me, not my movements physically. I'm
Not your
just walking
actions.
through rooms. I walk through rooms and I walk across lawns and I breathe oxygen. Like if you even looked at what I do with my life, not on a GPS, I'm just walking through rooms. There is nothing, I'm not climbing the Himalayas. So why do I think I've had an exciting life? And the reason I landed on is because creative thinking is really exciting. And
Mm.
I could be watching Netflix. I have an idea and I'm like, oh, what have we got here? An exciting thought. And all of a sudden, my
Mm.
environment in my mind changes to, oh,
Mm.
and you and me get this because we'll suddenly get an idea and we'll ride that out. And whether most of the mud I've thrown at the wall doesn't work.
Mm.
And we throw a lot of mud at the wall over the years.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
what I realized is, and this could be wrong, but this is my perception. The reason I think I've had an exciting life is because I
Mm.
think I have big thoughts. I don't know if they are big thoughts, but I think I have big thoughts because they're creative and they're exciting to me. And even if none of it comes to anything and I just
Mm.
throw a shit ton of mud at the wall and none of it
Mm.
sticks, there's something exciting about creativity that
Mm.
changes not your physical outward reality, but the internal life that I've lived
Mm.
is exciting due to creativity. And I realized how important creativity is in that moment when I really did the journey down to why do I think that that's where I landed. Not that this has got anything to do with what we've been talking about, but I think
No, I think it's a very interesting perspective because
so creativity then becomes a critical element and reason why I think we run with stuff, whether it works or not, is then I realized creative energy, and this would be in keeping with that book, Big Magic. Creative energy is in us and it has to be used up. And if it's not used up, it becomes destructive
mm.
because it becomes frustration and angst and even depression and boredom and
Mm.
unhappiness because we've got, particularly you and me, but I'm sure a lot of people have this creative energy and it has to be channeled in some way or we become very annoying people to be around because we've got angst and we're like, when yeah, I just feel like, oh, I need purpose. That's all this trapped
Mm.
creative energy, trapped excitement, and it's not being channeled in any direction. And you get more and more irritating to yourself and those around you. And I just realized in the last few weeks how important it is to channel creative energy because that creates excitement. And if you don't, the price is you don't do well, like in yourself. And
Mm.
like this podcast, these little things, well, no matter where it goes, the most important part is that we're using that creative energy that has to be used up or it becomes self-destructive and counterproductive.
Mm.
Um, so I thought that was an interesting question to ask people, even in an icebreaker in podcasts, is like, if you could summarize your life in one word, what would that word be?
Hmm.
Because to me, exciting would
Mm.
be that word.
Yeah, that perspective of like just moving from room to room in the same geographical, it's like I'm reminded of people that are sitting in solitary confinement in jail, say for life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they can start living a really flourishing life in there, which is wild because in their
Yeah.
mind, and how people endure prison camp or prison of war camps, yeah, I mean, so much of our experience is up here. I mean, that's what makes a depressed person, right? Like who's very, very wealthy, but still depressed. You're like, if you're an alien coming down, you'd be like, okay, I don't understand this. So you work your whole life for all this stuff, and you're sitting on your boat and you're depressed because you're not freed up here. And that's the part they don't
Mm,
understand because a computer, coughs out, you put the algorithm into the computer and the result is always the same. Whereas you
mm,
put that input into someone, and if they're tortured in their head and haven't figured out the freedom from that perspective inside themselves, then they're still not free or excited
mm.
about
Yeah.
you everything to be excited about. Like, you've done it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But they're teached as well.
my body did it, but my mind didn't follow the same
Yeah.
route. My mind stayed all the way back there, and I'm still struggling with that shit, and none of this stuff is working now. It,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's
super.
like, I do think that creative people have a huge potential to live lives that are very satisfying if you're not suppressing that and it's not being
Mm,
frustrated. That is
mm,
why so many groundbreaking things happen due to creative types, because there's something incredibly exciting about having big
mm,
thoughts. And they might not even be original thoughts. Like my thoughts that come to me that change my environment, it's like seeing in color, from sepia to color. I can be sitting on the couch watching a war movie. I get an idea and suddenly everything's in color and vivid. And I'm like, oh, I need to tell someone about this idea and get it out and
mm,
process it and see where it's going to lead me.
mm.
And that's that creative energy that you then have to honor, because if you don't honor, I do think it becomes self-destructive. But it's
Yeah.
just, yeah,
There's difference, right?
it's
Like if you
fascinating.
look at animals, like you've got, like I'm thinking about I don't know where my brain goes in weird places. So I got goats. We got three goats. They are constantly trying to get out of this beautiful situation I've given them. Nice green field. They want out all the bloody time. You place those three goats with three sheep, the sheep will just mow the field back and forth, back and forth. They
Really.
will
And
look
they're
at the
content.
fence, not push up against it, won't attempt an escape. Our fucking goats are constantly trying to get out. I'm like, I've given you everything you ever wanted, and yet you want
Yeah.
the brambles over there. Yeah, we'll look. Want the brambles, and you know,
So it's genetically
it's there are some
slightly.
people that are like, no criticism, no judgment. Like there's people, and the world needs sheep. The world needs
Mm,
people that will go to the factory and make the cars and just
yeah.
live for the paycheck. But you go to, I was watching a movie the other day where they were digging a tunnel out of jail, right?
Mm,
And you think about how in the war, the Second World War, and you get all these prisoner of war camps, and some people lived and died in those camps and just ate the soup every day and did the thing and did the push-ups and sang the songs the Germans wanted them to sing, or whatever it might be, and they just lived it. And then you got these pain in the ass guys that come in there and they're day one. So what's the plan to get out of here then?
mm,
What?
yeah.
No, because you're going to get caught and shot. And
Mm,
though you cannot tell those people
yeah.
any words, nothing's going to stop them from trying to figure out an escape. It doesn't matter about, it does matter if you're getting shot, but that part becomes like this faint little, and I think it's like coming back to leaving the faith. People like, yeah, but God might turn his back on you, and are you willing to roll that dice? Because that's eternal life. And for the creative person that's wanting to kind of like see in living, like, I actually want to see behind the curtain there. We're willing to roll
Yeah.
the dice of eternal life with God, because
Mm, the
the
curiosity.
truth and freedom outweighs that. But some people are
Mm,
not completely willing to just pretend that what's behind that curtain, I don't want to know about it. Because here I get to live my
mm,
whole life, not get injured, not get hurt. No one gets hurt around me. I just do what they're telling me to do. And the world is full of people like that, and no judgment to them. But yeah,
mm.
the creative person, you can't tell them not to start thinking about how we're going to dig a tunnel out, even though the cost of that might be your life. There's no telling those
I
guys,
think
right?
what happens in those environments, because I've also heard these stories of in the concentration camps where sometimes there were more bullies within the Jewish community who were cruel people before. um, they were cruel before they got into the camps, and then when they were in the camps they became more cruel than the Nazis because that
Mm,
cruelty was already in them, and then they had an environment that fostered that cruelty. And so there were some Jewish people that terrorized their own people and were far more horrid to them than the Nazi soldiers themselves. And it was this
well,
example of how, in a stressful or confined environment, it's going to bring out, like, we would probably be in there and be like, right, let's start a business. But in the micro, it's going to be same wherever you go. The same types of people will adapt and do. So you've got your compliant types that want to keep a low profile and follow the rules so that they're not seen and they're invisible. And then you've got your escape
mm,
artists, and then you've got your bullies, and then you've got your creative types that probably did really well in there because they started a business and traded goods and
mm,
services or whatever. And that's what's so funny about the diversity of humans, is that your lived experience, wherever it is probably going to adapt and be that exact same thing, but just in a different environment. And you're always going to
mm,
have the silent majority, and then you're going to have the outliers that are rebels and push the envelope, and then the
mm.
inventors who are misunderstood and don't get recognition till after they're dead. And it's just like that repetitive. You're going
I
to
mean,
get
I
a
guess it
percentage of
needs
those
it.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
it's
people
like the
that can't
farmyard,
be
right? You need the
hypnotized.
chickens, you need the pigs, you need the cows, you need the
Yeah,
sheep, you need the goats that are always trying to
yeah,
get out to make
yeah.
synergy and make it all work. And I guess just learning to be okay with who you are,
And
I
that's where
guess.
I landed when I was thinking about this summary. I realized accepting creativity and not fighting against it because it could be potentially destructive. The best thing I could do, and my kids, one of my daughters said to me the other day, how can I be more conscientious? Because she kind of recognized that she's not that conscientious, and it's something she needs to improve. And I said, try as best you can. If I've learned anything in the last year, it's not to lie. Try to tell the truth, because it's the only thing that will protect you, because it won't change. You can't warp your reality with truth. It is what it is, and it's unchanging. And the other
Mm,
thing is, be really honest about who you are and your limitations, because
mm,
the people that can be the most frustrating to be around is people who aren't honest about themselves. So if you're a late person, be honest about that and say, you know what, guys, don't wait up for me. I don't want to keep anyone waiting. I'll make my
I'm
own way
always
there,
late.
and I'll meet you up. But
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you own it, rather than saying, well, I'll be there on time, I'm good at being on time, and everyone's like, uh-huh, and that everyone knows that you're not that person, but you're saying that you
Mm,
are. And it's just, then you're more likely to set yourself up for judgment, because you're claiming to be something you're not. But if you know yourself and go, I'm a late person, you know me, I take 3 hours to get ready, I'll drive myself there so I don't hold everyone up. That would
mm,
be the most taking responsibility adult thing that a person could say, rather than keeping everyone waiting. Everyone gets annoyed with you and you claim to not be a late person. Then it's
mm,
just not being honest about yourself. So then that's a side thing. But the honesty about me, I'm a creative person. That's why I think I have an exciting life, even though outwardly I just walk through rooms and my GPS is a 5 mile radius. It doesn't matter. My lived experience is exciting because of the creative thoughts that I have that often come to
mm,
absolutely nothing. But to acknowledge that to myself, so that when I get a creative thought, I know it's okay. Throw as much mud at the wall as you can. It might not work, but it doesn't matter, because this creative energy needs to be used up. That
mm,
to me is a huge self acceptance thing.
mm,
And awareness of self and consciousness thing, where I go, just be honest. It doesn't always work out, but you should still pursue it, because that energy
mm.
needs to be channeled somewhere. So why the fuck not?
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
know.
I think I meet with a couple friends here in town, and we always talk about ideas, and it becomes stale very fast if you don't put wheels to the ideas, you know,
Yeah.
um, and the only thing that stops you from putting wheels on the ideas is fear of failure. I think
Yeah.
if I was to sum up my life, there would be a couple of different words. I mean, risk,
Yeah.
excitement, adventure. I
Yeah.
definitely plugged wheels on the things that for sure going to end in the ditch, you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Risk.
I,
Risk is
over
probably
and
a good
over
one.
again, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't look back with a whole lot of regret, because even though I'm covered in scars and I'm going to have arthritis when I'm older, it's like I've lived a life,
Mm.
you know.
If all you got from it
Um,
is arthritis, you're doing pretty well. You might have had that anyway.
yeah. What I'm realizing too, like even with this podcast and the people that I'm starting to like can like reach out to and see if they want to talk, I'm like, "Oh, man, I've been a lot of places and
Mm.
touched and been and kind of connected with a lot of different people from totally
Mm.
different walks of life. I wouldn't have that kind of Rolodex of people if I hadn't tried to make it in music, you know,
Yeah.
driven across the country and, you know, tried to run a discipleship school. I mean, I didn't even graduate high
Yeah.
school, you
Yeah.
know, going on the mission field, like
Yeah.
just all this crazy adventure because yeah, I get 50% of the ingredients and think I can make a cake with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't come out of the oven too good, and sometimes yeah, it looks like a Frankenstein, but it worked. It's tasty,
Meant to be a cake,
because that's
but
the
it looks like
story
a
of my life.
pancake.
Yeah,
Well, I
that's the
think risk
story of
would
my
be a
life.
great
I
one.
got
Yeah.
50% of the what's that?
Well, I think the word risk probably would, or adventure would probably sum up your life quite well.
Yeah, adventure. I think
Yeah.
big time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Well,
I
Alex,
think
we've
it's
done
an
a
interesting thought.
hour.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
phone's
yeah,
about to.
no, and I really like that analogy that you had. I think that's quite deep, actually. Yeah, that'll be a little soundbite we'll have to put on the internet, isn't it?
There we go. Put it out there. It might be an original thought, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have big thoughts, so that's all that matters. I think both you and I think we have really big thoughts, and we might well, but it's the fact that we think that makes it so much fun.
Exactly.
On that note,
All right.
speak to you soon. All right,
Nice to
love you.
connect.
Bye.
Love you too.